is Tracy with KOGmissions.com, and welcome. I'm really excited today to have Brother Andreas with me, and we are going to hear his testimony. He lives in Sweden, and welcome. Andreas, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And you?
I'm blessed, thank you. I'm going to just turn it over to you, and if you would share with us your testimony, how you came to understand these wonderful truths of Scripture, and where you're at today.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, my name is Andreas Qvist, and I'm born and raised Sweden. I come from a town named Örebro. And yeah, how I became a Unitarian is that I was a Trinitarian. I don't know if I would say that was a Trinitarian because, many Trinitarians think that they understand the Trinity, but then maybe it isn't so, because they did a survey in the United States on Christians who call themselves Trinitarians, and it showed that they were modalist, have a modalist view of God. But I thought I was a Trinitarian, and I believed that God was more than one. But I think I was. I think I always was quite unsure about the whole thing, and I had a lot of questions, and I was, it was verses from the Bible that always was back in my mind, that I was quite, wondering about what is this really saying. But everyone was believing that, the Trinity was true. So I was, everyone is believing this. So, this have to be the truth. And when I was I think it was like 2013, I was challenged on my Trinity belief by a guy. And so I was thinking, okay, like I have to really help this guy. This guy is denying the Trinity. So, it's I have to help this guy to come back to the truth. And so I went home and started to study this topic, and quite soon I realized that there is some problem here. For example, when we read John chapter 20 verse 17, when Jesus says that he has a God, and that started to make me think, like, okay, what is this really saying? If Jesus is God, how can he have a God? And I really, quite early in my research, started to see some problem. And the thing that really made me see that there is a problem here was when I really understood the Trinity, when I was studying the Trinity, that the Trinity was, the Orthodox Trinity was that God is three distinct persons, but still, well, like one in nature, one nature in three persons. And I was like, then I really started to understand that this is not biblical. You cannot find this in the Bible, because the Bible is really, is telling us that God is one person. And there, so I think I had like a modalist view, or even though I said I was a Trinitarian. But so then I really started to see, when I was understanding the Trinity doctrine, that this is not biblical. But then I became an Arian. So I thought that Jesus had a pre-existence, and he was born from the Father, and so he was exactly like his Father in nature. But of course, then the Father was the only true God, and then some time, for a long time ago, Jesus was born from the Father, and so he was, like, in that way, you could call him the Son of God. So I had that belief for a while, but then I started, thinking like, okay, if Jesus is born from the Father, he is exactly a copy of his Father, then you have two gods. And of course, that's a problem because we know that the Bible teaches us that God is only one. So now I had a problem that, okay, this is not biblical either, because if Jesus is exactly the same as his Father, then we have two gods. And of course, we still have the problem with, because the most important thing is that someone died for us on the cross. And of course, God cannot die. So there's a problem there. So then I still had a problem with, as I understood with the Trinity, that that was also one thing that I could see that was making me see that the Trinity couldn't be true because someone had to die on the cross for our sins, and of course, if Jesus is God, then we have a problem because God cannot die. But in the Arian view, we still have the same problem, because if Jesus was exactly in the same nature as his Father, he cannot die on the cross. So then I started to question the Arian view, and of course, when we read Matthew and Luke, who describes the birth of Christ, they don't tell us anything about that he came down from heaven, of course. And of course, that's quite interesting, because I don't think that they would forget to tell us that Jesus before he was born was some God person, like in heaven before. I don't think you forget to write that. So then I started to like really question this, like, yeah, this is not working out. So, but that was a really struggle for me, to leave the view that the belief that Jesus had a pre-existence. That was really hard for me, and I was battling that for many years. And sometimes it felt like I was going insane, because like I was, everyone is believing this, it's just me. It felt like, no, it's just me that I imagine this cannot be true, because all these people cannot be wrong and I have right. So I was really battling. I was really feeling bad and feeling down and depressed. But because also, when I was starting to share, because that time I was a member of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and I started to talk with my fellow brothers in the church, and they just like, what are you talking about? And they were quite upset over me, denying the Trinity, and then they. So it was quite a lonely time, and but in the end, I had to really accept what the Bible is telling us, that Jesus really was a human being. And it's quite, I think that's really biblical, that Jesus was a human being. And if you are a human being, that's what you are, And, the Trinity is saying that Jesus was not a human person, that he just was a God person that had a God nature. Sorry, a human nature. So, yeah. But, as I say, in the end, I had to really just accept what the Bible is telling us. So yeah, then I had to become a Unitarian that believe that Jesus Christ is God's human son. So yeah, that's my story.
That's great, Andreas. It was so simple, and it really is, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
Simple teaching.
yeah, I think that's the problem, that we complicate things too much. So, and
Mhm.
as you said, when you just read, when you just take the text for what it says it's quite, it's really simple, and that's quite sad and scary that it's so simple. When Jesus says, that he has a God, you know, that's why he's saying that, because he has a God, and of course, then you are not God, and he's telling us so much that is evidence that he cannot be God. For example, John 7 verse, I think it's verse 16, when it says, "My teaching is not mine, but he's the one who is the teaching from the one who sent me." And of course, you cannot say that if you are God, that the teaching that he's telling is not his own, but someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And for example, he says also in John chapter 12, when he says, like, the one who believe in me, they don't believe in me, but who's the one who sent me. And
Mm-hmm.
he says a lot of things that is really so clear and so simple. And but of course, the the Trinity doctrine has been the main teaching of the so-called Christian church for such a long time, and there was for many hundreds of years that if you denied the Trinity, they killed you. So of course, the only one who's alive is the Trinitarians. So yeah, but I'm glad. Really think that um, will be, the Unitarian faith will be. I don't think it would take a long, for people to really start to wake up to this truth. That we really will have a awakening of this truth, and I think I can see it also on the in the internet, and that more and more people are leaving the Trinity belief, because the more and more people is seeing that this is not biblical.
Right. And I think something you said at the beginning, that many think that they understand the Trinity. If you have
Yeah,
friends that are Trinitarians, oh, yeah, I'm a Trinitarian, but they
yeah,
really don't even know what it is. I know you talk to
exactly.
a lot of people. Do you have any like questions that you pose to them? Because I know you said that you were challenged on that belief, which made you study. And I've heard that from a lot of people who have come out of
Yeah,
that, because
mm,
they're trying to prove the Trinity to somebody else because, they care about the person. So,
yeah,
how would you suggest maybe challenging somebody in a loving way, or a question you might ask to a Trinitarian friend?
yeah. I think it's there are so many. Just share the verses. The obvious verses like John 7. Just ask questions. And just ask questions like, "What do you think about this?" Or, you know, just be honest. You shouldn't. If you see that something is is you know is a problem. With don't just be honest with it. To go like, I see it's a problem here, and start to ask questions. And because I think the people that are not denying this, I think they are doing it because they don't really want to know the truth. They just want to be accepted, and because, as we said, it's so clear. And so I think just ask questions, and
Mm-hmm.
don't be shy about it.
Mm-hmm.
So because I think of course, the, the the truth is the most important thing.
Mm-hmm. It is. And
So
oh, excuse me, go ahead.
no, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like you said, a lot of people, they don't want to invest the time to study, or they don't want to lose what they have. They have a nice
Yeah,
fellowship group or a church or their family. But we know that Jesus said that it is going to cost us something. He said it's going to
yeah,
divide families.
mm,
You're going to lose something. But he says, if you're willing to lose this life now, which would mean the church you're going to, the fellowship, the friends, the family, if you're willing to give up this life now, you're going to gain so much more in the future.
yeah,
And it's still hard, but it does cost us something. And so I think, like you said, spreading seed out, like the parable says, you don't know which kind of soil it's falling on. You may ask somebody a question, and if they don't respond favorably or they don't care, well, then you just, you keep putting seed out to who you can.
Exactly. Because in the end, it's the truth that saves us. So,
And it's not our
um,
truth, it's
yeah,
his.
exactly. Yeah. And this is not, this is, it's not a small thing, or where we should spend eternity is not a small thing. And so, yeah, um, can just hope and pray that we will soon be a great revival. And I really think that in a short time it will be a revival.
I really do. With the people I work with around the world, I think there is a revival in people seeking truth. I don't think it's going to be a revival like your evangelical Christians look at, where you have thousands of people coming. I really think it's God pulling out the one person here, the other person there, who is willing to seek and who is willing to really
Mm.
search. You mentioned like the majority believing, and I hear that too. Well, everybody believes this, you must be wrong. But if we think back in the days of Noah, the majority didn't get on the boat, and there were
Mm.
only 8 people saved. And
Yeah,
so we
that's true.
shouldn't get discouraged that
Yeah.
there aren't mass exoduses, from the
Mm.
Trinitarian belief or the churches, but to realize that there are people who are seeking truth, or maybe even people who have found truth and are seeking fellowship, or maybe they're just questioning, like, the Trinity, and they're like, this doesn't make sense.
Mm.
And that was one thing. It sounded to me like when you were talking in the beginning, really the simplest thing you did is you started thinking logically.
Yeah.
And really that's all people need to do, and to question the beliefs compared to what is in scripture. And I really liked some of your questions you posed to yourself, that Jesus died on the cross. If he's God, he can't die. I mean, that's so
Mm.
simple.
Yeah.
Ponder that, meditate on that. And so, thus, the Trinity couldn't be true, or the Arian view, that you still couldn't die.
Mm.
And, just questioning how many gods is that, even if they're telling you, oh, no, there's 3 persons, but it's one God. If anything else in life, somebody told you that, you wouldn't have a job
Exactly.
if you were thinking that way.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. I have experienced that if you ask 10 Trinitarians about their faith, if you
Mhm.
ask them to explain their faith in God, you will get 10 different answers.
Mm.
It's when you start to question them, you can clearly see how confused they are. And so, and it's also interesting. Just yesterday, I was out in my town where I live, and there were some Christians doing outreach, and they started talking to me, and I started to witnessing about my faith, and they got quite aggressive, and they have happened many times, sometimes before, that they get really aggressive. You can see some spirit behind it. It's just like anger and aggression and hate, and it's like, okay, what is going on here? And it's just like, it's like what the guy was telling me. It sounded like like the Catholics were in the Dark Ages. It's like, you have to believe what I'm saying. You shouldn't ask questions. Just accept what my faith and just be quiet. Like, and it's sad, but it's I think it's quite uh, clear that there is a spirit behind it also, of course.
I think you hit that on the head, because really, if you look at Satan, doesn't want people to believe truth. He doesn't want them to know the Father. He doesn't want them to know Jesus, because Jesus is the way to the Father, the way to life in the age to come, and immortality
Mhm.
for human beings. He doesn't want that.
Yeah, of
And
course.
that spirit behind it, if you really look at it, Trinitarians, they'll try to, quote, save people, even Muslims, that
Mm.
don't believe what they believe, or say Buddhists or atheists. They're going to invest time, they're going to be kind, they're going to try to save them. But when you're sharing truth like this, I found that too. And from listening to people, that really puts them in a different spot. And I really think that is a different spirit, because if they listen to you, you will plant seeds to get them thinking. And I
Mm.
really don't, I mean, a Muslim or an atheist, Satan doesn't care if the Trinitarian goes from one false teaching to another false teaching, but he doesn't want them coming to the truth so that they can,
Exactly.
as Thessalonians says, love the truth and so be saved.
Mm.
And so I really think that is why that happens, because you really see that happening when they are talking to a biblical Unitarian trying to show them the human Messiah, Jesus.
Mm.
So I think,
Yeah, and it's sad, it's of course it's really important that we can communicate with one another.
mhm,
And the interesting thing is, like, if for example, if I'm a Christian that start to questioning my faith in God, the person you shared with, like, oh, we'll pray for you, and they will take care of you, show you love, and you're just like,
mhm,
oh, it's try to convince you in a loving way to to come back to your faith in God. But if you go to your church and you say, I don't believe in the Trinity anymore, they will freak out and they will be aggressive and they will, like, throw you out.
mhm.
So, and that's quite interesting.
Yeah, it really is. And I think you hit it on the head, that it's the spirit behind it.
Yeah.
What's happening there. What do you have to say about people that are maybe coming out or looking for fellowship? I know there aren't a lot of people in Sweden. There aren't a lot of people in a lot of countries, and if there are, you're spread out. Um, how have you benefited from online Zoom or Skype type fellowships since you've come to this? You said it's lonely.
Yeah, of course, it's really lonely, and something that I noticed is that it's so much confusion in the Christian faith there, and of course that was also that Jesus told us that will be like that in the end time. But I have been in so-called fellowship on the internet, but there is so much strange ideas out there, and so it's hard to get to find the true a fellowship in truth. And but of course, we have to realize that we are not alone. We are never alone, and the most important thing is our relationship with God and His Son, because this is the eternal life, that they may know you, the only true God, and the one living Son, Jesus Christ. So that's our main focus. We are not alone, and that's, and if you feel alone, and we just pray to God, and pray that He will lead you, because it's I think it's not good if you just, like, act after your, like, pain to be after have pain because you're lonely. I have to have a fellowship, and because that can lead you, in the wrong fellowship. And so, but just pray about it, and just, like, you just be. Of course, I think the greatest fellowship, of course, is with God the Father and His Son, and just to be, and pray with Him, and talking with Him, and you study the Word. That's, of course, the greatest fellowship.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's the road is narrow, and that's, I really understand now
Mm-hmm.
how narrow the road is, when you really find the truth. It's a lot. It's hard, but it's that what exactly what Jesus told us, that the road would be narrow, and the gate will be, hard to get through. And
Well, we have to
but
get over the false idea that you need a lot of people, or
yeah, exactly.
all this, a big band or whatever. Where
Yeah,
two or three are gathered, there he is with you.
exactly.
And so even if you have just a couple people getting together to fellowship, encourage each other, study. I know I really appreciate the small group that you have that I was with
Mm.
yesterday, and it's just really a blessing. You have to change your mindset, and
Yeah.
you don't have to compromise to say, well, I want fellowship, I need fellowship, so I need to go to the local church, or
Mm.
things like that. like you said, the road is narrow, and I think we need to show our faithfulness.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, and it's when we look at the prophets in the Old Testament, they weren't like so popular. They didn't have so much friends, hanging out with all. So they were lonely. It was a lonely walk. And so, yeah, we shouldn't be surprised if we will become lonely when we find the truth.
I like
So,
looking at it, Andreas, that if we look at this life, let's say, if we're blessed, okay, let's say we live 80 years, even
mm,
say 100. If you make it to
mm,
100, what is that 100 years in comparison to even the millennium, the first phase of the
exactly,
kingdom? 1,000 years. Are you
exactly.
willing to give up 100 years now for that 1,000 years? But when you do that, you're also getting eternity in the eternal kingdom, like forever
Yeah.
in the age. So are we
And
really giving up that much? Again, we need to really think about it and change our thinking and our focus.
I think that's a big problem that we too often are focusing on the worldly things. We
Hmm.
should instead be focused on the heavenly things.
Hmm.
Of course, if we focus on the worldly things, we would just be, a mess and depressed. And
Well,
but when
Jesus
we
was
focus,
tempted by the worldly things when he was in the
yeah,
wilderness.
yeah, exactly. And but I think that's of course the struggle is against the flesh, and the
Hmm.
flesh doesn't want to focus on the heavenly things. And of course, that struggle we will always have. And but we will, of course, with the help of God, we will overcome the flesh more and more in our walk with Him.
Well, and with brothers
And
and sisters walking alongside us and helping
yeah,
us.
exactly. Yeah.
Hmm.
So, but I think we should. I think it's important to be more focusing on the heavenly things,
Hmm.
the eternal life. That's so big that we cannot grasp it, understand it. But
Hmm.
I think that we should focus on, as you said, what is 100 years, here on the earth in maybe with troubles and, hardships when we, in the end get like a million trillion years.
Right, right. On a perfected earth that is, rid of all the trash. you know,
Exactly.
it's back to a Garden of Eden state of beauty. And it says, no eye has seen or nobody can imagine what God has prepared for us.
Yeah.
And if we look at nature today and we see the beauty there, it's going to be way better. It's just exciting.
I heard somewhere, I don't know if this is true, but that 99% of all the animal species have been wiped out, and
Wow.
exactly with 99% of all they say the nature, the flower, the green stuff is also, it's just
So
when
we don't even
1%
have a
left.
glimpse of what God
Exactly.
has. Yeah, well, that's neat. That
Yeah.
is. Do you have any last words for anybody that may have come to the truth and they're looking for fellowship, or people that are thinking or questioning, or people that are trying to, help other people?
It's just, I think we shouldn't be afraid. God is the one, He's God.
Hmm.
He's the one who has all power, and our Father is 1 trillion billion stronger than our enemies.
Amen.
So, and He will never leave us. And I think that is the thing that will give us strength, that to understand that we are not strong, but God is strong, and He is for us. And He loves us more than we can understand. And He wants us in heaven more than we want to be in heaven, be with Him.
You mean
So,
on the kingdom on the earth here when when Jesus returns?
yeah,
Yeah,
of course. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I know
So,
people
yeah,
get things in their mind from before and they make references and yeah, but
yeah.
yeah, waiting for
So,
Jesus to come back.
yeah.
It'll be a great day.
Yeah, yeah, we will be shocked.
Hmm.
It will be
Exactly.
something we cannot even try to understand, I think.
Right. But we just
So
want
that,
to make sure we're there. That
yeah,
we're
exactly.
resurrected when Jesus comes and that last trumpet sounds, that the angels are waking us up at Jesus, like Jesus said in Matthew 24, sends them out
Yeah,
to gather his elect.
yeah, and it will be quite something. And to just see God, as he said, God will create everything new. To
Mm-hmm.
see God create the new earth
Mm-hmm.
and the new creation,
Mm-hmm.
and that will be something.
Mm-hmm.
And to be in this perfect world and with everything will be restored. Imagine how much new things we will see.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to really try to understand.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, um, as many Christians believe that we will go to heaven, but of course we will not go to heaven. We will be here on earth. But of course, that's typical of Satan. He takes truth and it turns us up inside, up and down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
he says we will be in heaven, but of course we will be here on earth. So.
I like the question, why would you want to go to heaven when you die when Jesus is going to be here on the earth? He's not going to be. Why would you go there if he's not going to be there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But
Yeah,
you
that will
think
be.
too, Andreas, what do people think of heaven? They're still thinking of earthly things, like, oh, the beautiful stream or this or that. And
Yeah,
but yeah, that's really an unfortunate thing that Satan has blinded people's minds about is the future hope that we have and understanding that. But it's so simple, just like
yeah,
understanding who the Father is and who the Son is.
yeah,
But yeah, thank you so much for sharing with us. I'm sure your testimony will encourage many people out there. I know you're also a musician. Maybe sometime we could get you to play some music and just share that with people and bless them in their
yeah.
way as well.
That would be great. I would be glad to do that, of course.
All right. Well, thank you, Andreas, and
Thank you
I
too.
look forward to continuing to fellowship with you.
The same.
Mhm.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank
God
you.
bless.
God bless.